better as a result of social media presence.
If it doesn't do those three things, then it's on the chopping block.
It's a return on investment discussion.
Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Daily Dealer Live podcast. I'm your host, Sam Dark, and back with us today is the Yuli DiMartino. Yuli, welcome
What's
back.
Up, guys?
You know, I said podcast. I hiccuped on that line. This is a live stream, and we're joined by everybody across social media, also CDG social media platforms. We're live across all of them. Post your comments. We'll bring those comments in today's show. And we've got a bunch of topics that are intriguing to me. Yuli, I think you as well. I hope you, our audience, as well. For example, finding that right hire in automotive here is gold. It saves time. It builds culture. That right hire has a direct impact to net profits. And Yuli, today we are going to explore the toughest positions to fill. Any guesses on which ones are the toughest in automotive to fill and retain?
I mean, I feel like I know the answer. Do you want a real guess or do we want to keep it?
No. Let's keep it going. But actually on social, you can post it to it. We'll bring those in. Plus, we're going to give you 3 strategies to filling and retaining the best. One of our guests is a subject matter expert on this today. We'll hear a little more on that later today. But also, we've got David Spek. He joins to discuss AI chaos in automotive, what the promises of AI are so often under delivering, alongside tips to avoid the challenges of costly trial and error. Not only the challenges, but I feel like there's an economic cost to some of that as well. That can be avoided as we approach things in a little bit different way with David Spek. But first, let's dive into today's biggest automotive headlines. First up this morning, new cars were a touch more affordable in July, making the second straight month of improvement. The typical buyer needs 36.8 weeks of income to purchase an average new car. That's down from 38.6 weeks a year ago, according to Cox Automotive. Average monthly payments fell to $748, the lowest since March, as automakers leaned harder on incentives. Vehicle prices also slipped 0.1%. Loan rates held steady at 9.63%, but that's still a full point lower than last July. And incomes rose 3.4% year over year, giving some buyers extra cushion. By the way, that data point from Cox is fascinating. I know it's backed up by Fed reporting. Incomes are rising right now. That's a good sign for overall economic health, and that's a great sign for automotive as we wait for interest rates to drop significantly. Next up today, Yuli, and our Daily Dealer Live audience, Acura is reworking its product playbook with plans to finally bring more hybrids into its lineup, marking a sharp turn for the Honda-owned premium brand. That shift comes as Honda invests $1 billion into its Marysville, Ohio plant. That actually, what's the show where he says $1 billion? That sounds like a lot, and that is a lot, which will build ICE, hybrid, and EV models on the same lines, giving Acura the flexibility to slot in hybrids quickly. While the brand hasn't confirmed which models will come first, industry chatter points to a hybrid MDX aligning with Honda's strategy to electrify larger vehicles. Honda's already had traction in the space. Hybrids now account for 56% of Accord sales this year, and a Civic hybrid test returned 51 miles per gallon over 2 months. With U.S. hybrid sales more than double EVs in early 25, Acura's pivot looks less like an experiment and more like a necessity as it fights to stay relevant in a segment its rivals from Lexus to Hyundai are racing to own. Fascinating. And finally, a headline that blew up over the weekend, Jeep CEO Bob Broderdorf is leading a product-first turnaround to rebuild market share and re-energize the brand. In just a few months, he's made 81 changes, some tiny, some big, while keeping an eye on Jeep Reddit threads where he sometimes jumps into the comments himself. So heads up to everybody out there on Reddit. If you want Bob's ear on all things Jeep, go to Reddit and post there. You may get his engagement. The strategy centers on consistency for Jeep's core audience, while pulling in new buyers with fresh launches like the Recon EV, a 2026 Cherokee Hybrid with all-wheel drive, and updated Wagoneer models, including the all-electric Wagoneer S, hopefully under $100,000. The mandate is clear: rebuild market share, restore profitability, and cement Jeep's position as a leader in key segments of the SUV marketplace, which they have been a standard. Jeep has been for decades, since as long as I can remember, Yuli, right?
Yeah, we love Jeep. And
We love
also, it
Jeep.
was Austin Powers with Dr. Evil.
It was, yes,
$1
$1
billion.
billion. So they're investing. You heard it first here on the Daily Dealer Live. So, hey, we mentioned this last week. I'm going to mention it one more time here. We get a ton of requests. People reach out to me in DMs, email, they call. We want all the requests for dealers to join the show and come talk to us about topics that matter to them most. We're taking those requests into one place just to help from a organizational standpoint to make it a little bit easier. Dealers, if you want to join the show, please visit cdgguest.com. That's cdgguest.com. Fill out the intake form to be considered for a future guest spot. And the wonderful Michelle will reach out to you and find out your topic and what you're interested in and potentially bring you on the show. So go to that spot to be brought in. And Yuli, we've got a great lineup today, don't we?
We do. Yeah, we do.
Let's
We
jump.
really do.
Let's jump into it. First off, President and CEO of Disruptive Growth Solutions LLC, David Spek. Welcome, David, to the show.
Well, it's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hi,
Oh
David.
my gosh, you sound like $1 million. That is a
Right.
fantastic
Seriously.
mic.
Thank
I need
you.
a better
You know,
mic.
if you want, yeah, we could switch the show over to being like late night. It could be like the love line, right?
Sam Dark.
Wait.
You're on the CDG
Yes.
love
After
line.
dark.
Go ahead.
Yes, actually, if Taylor has my graphic from the closeout from last show, now would be a good appropriate.
Yeah.
But Art Bell, David, you're old. You and I are of a similar generation. We remember Art Bell.
Are we?
The late night, right? Late night radio.
Yes.
He or Larry King. So, but no, that's a cool mic. All right. Before we get into the topic that you're here for, answer our show's question, which is how's biz? And as you do that, give us a little bit of background on who you are and what you define as biz, David.
Well, who I am, I'm a car guy. Interesting, which is a good fit for the Car Dealership Guy show. I'm a 45 plus year car guy, served in the Navy. To all of you out there, thank you for your
Thanks
service.
for your service. Yeah.
And fell into a job in the car business like most of us. Like most of us didn't sit on our mother and father's lap at 8 and say, you know, if I really work hard at school and meet the right people, I'm hoping to sell cars. We just kind of fell into this business. And then most of us fell in love with it. And, you know, a little bit like Al Pacino in Godfather 3, every time you try to get out, they pull you back in. So
yes, they do.
I'm a car
Such a
guy,
good reference.
disruptive growth. You know, I'm a former dealer, spent 25 years in retail. The last 18, 20 years, I've been creating software solutions, including reverse risk, Accessa, net profit, and a couple of others. Have sold a couple of those solutions and have, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 clients out there on software. Today, I do the David Spisak show. Tune in.
Very
Love
good.
to have you guys on. I'd like to flip the script.
Bring
and
us
have
on.
you
Let's
guys
bring
on.
it. Let's
Yeah,
do
I'd
it.
like to flip the script.
Let's do it.
Do some kind of a TMZ expose with you guys. Something salacious. We'll make up everything. But I do that
Peel the
once a
curtain
week.
back.
I drop that once a week, but my main focus is on being an advocate for dealers. So I'm an advisor and consultant for dealers around the country, and that keeps me close. I spend over 150 days a year in dealerships so that I'm real in what's happening now. And I also do consulting and advisory for some of the top tech clients out there in their industry. So it's but it's a great way to spend time. It keeps me off the mean streets, if you will.
Yeah. So with all this background, all your experience touching dealers from coast to coast here in the United States, from your vantage point, how is automotive retail this month, August of 2025, mid-month? What are you seeing out there?
You know, it's a mixed bag. And I think that we're entering a period of time in retail automotive where the franchise counts, you know, and I think one of your topics today is people. So the franchise counts. Of course, AI is going to be top of mind. Used car acquisition is going to be top of mind. There's always going to be things top of mind. Fixed operations, if you're not paying attention to fixed, this is not the year to get interested, not the year to focus. It's the year to master fixed operations because it is guaranteed growth for the next 5, 10 years or beyond. And we're not so certain where we're going to be with variable, but you have more risks on the variable side. As far as used cars, it's a very interesting situation. In June, our used car inventory of all things went up 14.5% in a market that's been struggling to get used cars. And of course, we're in a situation where Carvana and CarMax have never been stronger. Carvana is nearing $50 billion. This is incredible for a company in December 22, less than 3 years ago, guys. It was less than $1 billion when the stock fell from 371 down to $4. But Ernie Garcia and that team has done possibly the greatest turnaround in the history of the stock market. CarMax is solid. And we're seeing more and more dealers starting to really go to school on them. Success leaves clues, of course, and they're going to school and starting to learn and how to leverage the things those companies do very well, but then coupling those with things those companies cannot do. They don't have new, they don't have leasing, off-lease, loaner cars, and they can't get that face-to-face Carvana necessarily that a retail dealer can.
So David, before we ask you to go into what are the things they do really well that is a masterclass for dealers, let's pull a thread you mentioned earlier. You said right now it is a tale of OEMs. There's the great ones, right? And how's biz pivots on what OEM? Who do you see as the top two and the bottom two most struggling OEMs, and why in today's market?
This is a challenge. Don't hate me, OEMs or dealers, but I'm going to keep it real. I always have said for my whole existence, I'm not trying to get invited to anybody's pool party. I'm trying to help dealers win. So let's be real. There's no question who number one is. It is, and probably for the long term will be Toyota. Why is it? They don't just create phenomenal vehicles that consumers love, trust, and rely on. Honda is another one that creates fantastic vehicles and will always be relevant in that top dealer conversation. But what separates Toyota is not the cars, it's the organization. So that partnership, they have it. Every OEM says we're partners, but the last time I looked, guys, when was the last time you were in a partnership where your partner didn't tell everything that was going on, where your partner wasn't transparent, where your partner said, hey, you got to be transparent with your clients, but they're not transparent with me.
Those relationships don't last long, do they?
No. So when you think about this, and you mentioned Jeep, and I'm super hopeful for Jeep, but I'm going to wait until I'm going to be a little bit of the Missouri state and have them prove it first, since their market share has dumped in previous years. But
yet it's an iconic American brand. Jeep is.
Oh, right? You want them to come on. Who doesn't love a comeback story?
So David, who do you put at the bottom? Who are the 2 or 3 bottom that you see struggling right now that could mount a massive turnaround?
Well, Stellantis is, very much at the bottom. If you simply look at market share, if you pay attention to how they've treated their dealers, you don't have to just treat your clients right. You have to create great products, of course, but you better think about re-energizing your dealer network as much as you're thinking about re-energizing the product lineup, because that dealer network is critical to getting the word out and being able to sell those vehicles. At the bottom, I have to say right now, I got to keep Stellantis there until they prove me otherwise, but I'm super hopeful. Jason Stoicevich and a number of other people that are back at the reins, I think, are in position and fully committed. The other one, man, it's a tough one. I'm very mixed on Hyundai, just because of the partner side of things. Okay. I like the brand. I like the cars. I'm not necessarily in love with the partnership relationship. When you look at others, how do you not have conversations about Volvo, about Mini, about some of these fringe franchises out there that Lincoln, for God's sakes? How do you get relevancy when you're at 1% or less market share in this country? Very hard. So at the top, you also have, Porsche, you have Lexus. I still think Subaru is a mover shaker, although watch out, Subaru, because they've been sitting on their cars for way too long, and they need to I think they need to consider the fact that others are catching up.
But historically, they've shown a discipline that has been unusual in automotive, not oversupplying, not undersupplying. produced to demand very nicely, in my opinion.
They
So,
have, but they kind of went from Rolex to Target, over a couple periods of time. They were always subscribing when Tom Dahl was there to the one, two,
yeah.
few. And they jumped in, I think, wanting to go all in against Toyota, Honda, Kia, Hyundai. And I think they went outside their lane a little bit. So I have full confidence. It's a phenomenal brand, phenomenal story, almost a cult-like client base.
100%. Yeah.
So
And actually, with some exposure to the Subaru brand, David, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I think if there is a little overproduction, which I haven't seen yet,
Stop it.
100% from my vantage
Stop it.
point, I think it's probably on the footstool of tariffs, right? So, but that's good that we can agree to disagree. I like it.
We shall see. We shall see.
Yeah.
All right. So
Are-
as far as this question you have up there, do you have a defined used car policy? Let me share something with you that may be
Okay.
considered controversial. So for
All right.
years, it used to be a 90-day turn. And then somebody finally woke up and said, okay, that's not working. So they flipped it down to a 60-day turn. Everybody subscribed to that. I've got news for you guys. I've got data, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of sales across the country. And you know what's interesting? The cars that sell in under 15 days make obviously maximum gross. They have maximum BDPs. They have very low, if any, advertising costs, and they have tiny floor plan. So that's no surprise. Keep in mind, everybody out there, you have two types of vehicles in stock. You have cars people want to buy and cars you have to sell. Now, the cars that people want to buy always flip in under 15, and the average days are actually 8. If you look at the data, 16 to 30 days, gentlemen, the gross cuts in half or less. And if you look at all the cars that sold in the United States, give me every dealer you can. I'll throw them all into my data analysis. The average gross is actually negative. So my view of the world is, explain this to me. If you need to turn your inventory 12 times in a year, that's a 30-day turn, right?
Correct.
And if you're not turning in 30 days, you're probably not profitable. In fact, most dealerships are wildly unprofitable. So what's my turn policy? It's simple. If my car doesn't have significant VDPs or write-ups within 21 days, the car's out. Think of how crazy most people are going to think about that. But if the car is not popular, in demand, if it's not a car people want to buy in 21 days, why do we keep thinking it's going to become popular in 30 or 45 days?
And when you say it's out at day 21, what does out mean? Wholesale it, sell it,
I get
retail
rid
it,
of it.
launch it,
Yeah,
price-wise? It's just gone.
well,
Regardless of the loss.
Well, at best case, you better be number one in the market for whatever that car is. I'll tell you why. People will sometimes tell me, guys, hey, we're the 5th lowest or 8th lowest. My answer to that is, so point out the customer that's out there going, as long as I could get the 8th best deal, I'm going to be good. It doesn't
happen.
Right? It doesn't happen.
And so many people fall in love with the metal too. You get this little cream puff or some one-off or maybe a more rare car. And for some reason, your used car manager thinks, hey, let's price it to 115 or 120% of market. And it's like, all right. So now you get no clicks for the first 20 days. To your point, it's just dead air.
You know what's crazy?
What a waste of time and money.
You have this little company called CarMax who is so disciplined that they know they've got the data and the discipline to know exactly what to do with a car on day one. They have an exit strategy day one. It's either retail or wholesale. So think about this. The number one challenge for a Carvana or CarMax is feed the beast. I need as many cars as possible. So explain to me why CarMax wholesaled almost 600,000 vehicles last year. I'll tell you why. Because their data told them it would not sell. It would not be a profitable outcome in under 30 days. So what do? Well, what if we come up with an auction and we'll sell these cars that are undesirable and don't meet our ideal inventory? Gentlemen, who bought those 550,000 cars? Dealers. So dealers took the CarMax off the hook for cars that were likely to be unprofitable and a problem. And then dealers, check this out. 10% of the cars CarMax sold profitably came from dealers. Guys, it's time to wake up. It's time to rethink. And one of the things you got to start with and make sure you have an exit strategy. I noticed that Yossi was on with Alex Vetter from Cars recently, and Dealer Club fascinates me. I think it's intriguing because I can list a car. I can have a first day immediate exit strategy. I could list it for free. I could sell it for free. I mean, what could be better than that versus taking it to the auction? Stop taking chances on cars that are not your ideal inventory.
So, David, what would you say to the used car manager, the dealer right now? So we had somebody on Industry Spotlight. You can go back to that podcast. You can see it. It dropped, I think, on Sunday. And he said, look, we don't have a turn policy. We're using technology, some of it AI-driven, some tech-driven, that tells us where to put this vehicle, how to price it. And we're going to hang on to that until we sell it retail, because some dealers would say used car pricing is uncertain right now. Things are going up, things are going down. Like, some dealers would say it's better if we're going to invest in reconning it, let's hang on to it until we can retail it on our terms rather than wholesaling it, as you say, off to another dealer as CarMax has done. What would your response be to that? By the way, not my opinion. It's just a question that came in.
Just stop it.
Yeah.
Listen, is that what Carvana does? Is that what CarMax does? Is that what
They
the
don't.
top used car performing retailers in the country do?
So,
Absolutely, positively not. Now, here's
right.
the problem. The problem is we have a disease in our industry. And again, don't hate me, guys, but check me on this. It's called irrational optimism. It's optimism without basis. And that's what gets people in trouble. I asked this question to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dealers. In the course of your career, same thing with sales managers. In the course of your career, have you ever had a used car manager leave your store, either because they were asked to or they left on their own, and the day after you had a mess to clean up? What was the percentage people said that was true? 100%. Why is that? Irrational optimism. Here's the thing. You can get lucky, but just because I go to Vegas and get lucky on 21 black, or I get lucky at a blackjack table, that is not a 401k or a retirement or a legitimate retirement plan, right? Or strategy. So I think it's a big mistake.
I love that phrase, by the way, irrational what'd you say?
Optimism.
Optimism, because
that's
you know
mine.
who
You can
coined
use
irrational exuberance, right? Coming into 08 was Alan Greenspan, right? Saying
That's right.
that people just got
Well,
a
now we have
little over their
irrational
skis on it.
optimism.
Now we
It-
have irrational
It is a
optimism.
net profit assassin. Write that down, everybody.
So give us the takeaway for the single point, or maybe you've got 2 or 3 rooftops where this getting rid of that vehicle at, what was the day mark again, David? You
For
said
me, it's 21.
21 days.
It's 21 days. I'm either going to get rid of it, guys, or mark it way down to make sure it's number one. I need the VDPs.
You're going to retail it, force retail it. Okay.
Mhm.
Because CarMax, with all the locations they have, they've got a bigger network, more horsepower to do it. A single point might say, hey, I can't afford to take that loss. I can't afford to just retail, but you're saying price it to the marketplace in that case. Yeah.
Yeah. You ever notice, guys, think about your whole career. You don't have to sell cars people want to buy. You ever notice that? You have to sell cars people don't want to buy. So everybody, please take a clue from that. So if it's on day one, here's the keys. Here's the takeaway. Number one, you have to figure out what your ideal inventory is. What is that based on? It's not based on you. Nobody cares. It's based on what the searches are in your marketplace. What is selling in your market? And the problem is most dealers repopulate the used car departments with cars they're selling. Well, you're only selling them. It's a self-fulfilled prophecy because that's the car you have. Please start looking at your search. Number two, make sure that you know the ideal inventory and you're disciplined to that. Number three, make sure you price them to sell. You'll find that most top performing used car places never put more than $2,000 in a car. Why? They have figured out that if you want to maximize gross, you don't do it one deal at a time. You do it by maximizing turn. If you give me 20 grand and I get you a car and I sell it in under 20 days, and I'm able to turn that capital for you 15, 18, 20 times, you're going to beat the snot out of everybody else out there who's trying to make maximum gross. Recon, you got to relook at your recon. And last but not least, you got to make sure that you are merchandising the vehicle correctly and get it out no more than 30 days. 80% of your cars should be sold in under 30 days, 80%. So if you're doing that, you're doing something right.
So, David, these are the lessons that Carvana and CarMax have honed in on and has helped cause the turnaround with CarMax, or with Carvana. And you're saying that if dealers take their strength, which is the franchise system, the access to used car trade-ins, that they can win in that marketplace. Lean in a little bit more on that.
Yeah.
How do dealers today win versus Carvana with the franchise benefit?
Look at organizations like Eastern's Auto Group, which is largely an independent. One Nissan story's got, I think, 11 used car facilities in Virginia, brilliantly run. Joel Bassam. If you look at the Costa Auto Group, if you look at Edgar Castellanos in Southern California, going up against the most highest density of new car franchises, and he's killing them, right?
Yeah.
So in each case, that's what they've done, is they are paying attention, learning from those clues that work over and over and over again. They're adopting those disciplines. Also, they're making recon so much easier. They're eliminating the great dealer Adam Aarons. They're eliminating the decision making in recon. Most stores, guys, the car comes in, it sits. I got to wait for it to get in recon. Then I got to wait for the advisor to come back. Then I got to wait for what they're going to say. Then the advisor is waiting for the used car manager to approve it. In these top performing stores, they get the car in and they get the car out. Everybody knows what needs to be done. They're getting the car through in 3 or 4 days. They're pricing it to move, and they're going after cars that people ultimately want to buy. They don't pay attention to the nameplates or what's on the hood nearly as much as the fact that most people want a great car with CarPlay, Android Play, or whatever.
So, David, we're almost done, and we're on a tight time lane, but I want to hit one more topic. The producers are going to kill me for this, but I want to bring in just a couple comments because you've got some good feedback here online. So, Darius said, such valuable insight. Thank you. Ben says, this guy is good. And then Bert Davidson, he says, I've got 15 rooftops in 3 different markets. I've been moving aged units around like Kelly for 2 years now. That's commentary back to the industry spotlight. And Kelly talked about Viato, no turn policy, but a used car director that's basically orchestrating moving vehicles around, which to your point, it's not outside, it keeps it inside the group. It says very few transferred. And then I lost the last part.
Transferred vehicles typically lose money. Yeah, I consider it laundering. So in fact, when I was an executive for AutoNation, I call that laundering, where I would catch one of my stores taking a 60-day-old unit, and instead of wholesaling it, they would wholesale it to another one of our stores, and that store would take their old car, and now it's in their store as a fresh unit, and the other one would do the same thing. All you're doing is laundering inventory. But the thing doesn't get more valuable. If you look at the Publix, they write those cars down. You want to keep it? You want to keep it, but you got to write it down.
You take a loss as you go.
Oh, and forever said, oh, don't worry, the prices are unstable. What if they go up? Well, somebody please go into ChatGPT and tell me how many times that's happened and when's the last time it happened. Every single year it goes down. This year we're more stable than most years recently, but it's still going down.
Great viewpoint that pivots or that counters what we saw in the industry spotlight. DNC asks, so it's David's business model, essentially a consulting firm for dealers. If so, how do you price your services, David, as you work with dealer groups?
For me, well, my dealers are all on to monthly retainers. So I have a consulting and advisory agreement. People can go to davidspisak.com or disruptivegrowthsolutions.com. If they go to davidspisak.com, you'll also find about 230 podcast episodes with some really smart people like yourself. I'd love to have you on.
We're on. Let's do it.
But basically, they contact me. They could reach out, DM me on LinkedIn. They could hit me on my cell phone. Share this, write this in a bathroom stall, 510-604-0308. Hit me up. My team will send you the information on how you could get a blank consulting and advisory agreement. No risk, 30-day out. It's easy. Hey, I pay for
how's that for a setup, right? A volleyball setup at Spike. So that's a great answer to the question. 2 questions, and then we got to go because we got 30 seconds.
I'm a Scorpio, and my favorite movie is The Notebook.
That's right. This is going to be lightning round. What's the toughest position in all of automotive to hire?
Come on. That's a softball.
It's a softball.
That's a T-ball. It's a technician. It's a technician.
The hardest
this question. Oh my God.
Harder than general manager? A good general manager, not somebody who's rotating around. Harder than a good technician. 100%.
Yeah, because here's the problem. How many Gen Zs are going, Mom, if everything goes right for me, I'm hoping to turn a wrench for the next 40 years. I don't want to mess with things like AI.
people say the exact same thing about being a GM or even in car sales, period. Like,
May-
I never intended
yeah.
to get into my dad was a college professor. He had great hopes of me doing all the great things at a university that people do. And here we are in the car business, and we love this business.
And we're having
It's in you
my
and
my
other
wife
things.
is wife is a brilliant physician, and she's astounded that we make so much more money than brilliant physicians. So I don't
Yeah.
think we're doing bad, but here's the problem. We just don't have enough technicians. In fact, I was listening to a podcast episode with Jim Cramer last
Yeah.
week with UTI CEO, and he
Oh, yeah.
said they keep building more and more and more local facilities. They cannot keep up with demand. If they built 3 or 4 more a year, they can't keep up. We can't find them. Guys, if you have a great work culture and you pay attention, you can keep the good ones. If you reduce turnover, it's a heck of a lot easier to build a team. Everybody knew my store for being the most profitable in the country at nearly 30 million. But that wasn't my favorite stat. My favorite stat was we had less than 3% employee turnover. That's what helped us create that type of financial outcome. So lower the turnover, get the people right, recruiting, development, and retention.
All right. And we actually have a great conversation coming up on that, including 3 tips to find the right person, to retain the right person long-term. Last question, honestly, 15 seconds on this. You said at the Automotive Forum, you said when talking about AI that dealers want solutions, not noise. And you cautioned against overhyping AI. I know this opens up a big topic, but just as a lightning round, what's 1 or 2 AI-driven or tech-driven solutions right now that are valuable? Because I agree with you, there's a lot of noise. Most often, it's a solution in search of a problem. Is there anything that you're seeing that's good out there as you're working with all the different groups you're with?
Yeah, I'll name a couple. Constellation out of New York has created AI agents, which is the first of its kind that helps people. Don't hate me, advertising agencies, but you could eliminate brand strategists, advertising strategists. These agents are brilliant at helping you literally grab market share. 2 is Impel. Impel is probably the king. They've been around longer than anybody else out there.
They're good. I agree.
And you have Sky Vision, which I've had so many of my clients get onto Sky Vision, because you could tell, you could reduce cycle time, you can improve client satisfaction, and you can help with acquisitions.
So what's the difference? What's the operative, most important difference between the noise of AI and the execution of AI?
Number one, it depends on what DMS you're on. If you're on a closed API DMS, it's very tough. You're going to end up living in silos and relying on third-party fractured kind of integrations. If you're on a Techion, cloud-based, mobile-based, AI-based, that makes a difference. But otherwise, you've got to find people that are focused on the right things and have data origin in the right places. So places like, Dealer Inspire, Cars Commerce, AccuTrade. You got others out there as well, VinQ, that are doing some really good things. Drive Centric has some good stuff. But guys, pay attention. AI is not going to solve your problem. It's not. It can exacerbate your problem.
It'll actually uncover it if you don't have good systems and processes.
But it won't
people,
fix
it'll
it.
uncover it. And on that, President CEO Disruptive Growth Solutions, David Spek, we appreciate you being on the show, sharing your perspectives.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. Wishing you all the best.
Thanks, David.
Yossi and the whole CDG team. You guys are.
By the way, that's our graphic. It's Sam After Dark. So this will be our late night show, David.
I believe, Sam. I believe at one of the NADA after parties, you looked exactly that way.
That could be. That could be. No future further comment. So good to meet. Good to see you.
See you guys.
All right.
See you next time.
Thanks, David.
That's a heck of a lot of fun. I love the conversation about turn, no turn. Obviously, like as a best practice, you got to have a turn practice. But we did see on the industry spotlight a great strategy for not having the turn, but then making sure that the cars made it to the right place. Very interesting. A lot of great commentary. Bobby Evans says, great insights. David Dancy says, another Techion plug. We had several plugs in here. By the way, these are not paid endorsements. It's just to get information out and let people know what the industry is seeing, people like David from his perspectives. So let's talk about the show. Prime Dealer Equity Fund. Prime Dealer Equity Fund is providing a limited number of accredited investors with 100,000 or more the rare opportunity to invest directly into franchised auto dealerships. The offering could only be made via the private placement memorandum under Regulation 506C. And Led by seasoned operators with deep experience in both dealership operations and fund management, the fund is designed to deliver consistent cash flow and long-term capital appreciation. If you're looking to diversify into this asset class, this may be your chance. Check out primedealerfund.com/CDG to learn more. And just so it's clear, this is not investment advice or an offer to sell securities. Any investment can only be made through the official private placement memorandum and only by accredited investors. But if you want to find out more about that, you can scan the QR code there. It'll teach you more about it. And if you're on a phone and you can figure out how to scan the thing, as we always say, you're a rock star. So thanks for supporting today's show and a lot of the content that we're bringing you to the Prime Dealer Equity Fund. So thank you. All right. Toughest job to hire and recruit for, Yuli. What would you say before we bring on our next guest?
Controller.
I agree. Like, and you know what? I think as soon as we say toughest, I think we also have to say, like, toughest to find really good quality that becomes a part of the organization, that stays, that grows, that develops, because there's so much bouncing around. And if you just go to someone who's available, you put a job listing out there and they are not working anywhere, you're just hiring someone else's problem. It's almost like David Spek said, you're buying that used car from another dealer group to take on their problems. Like,
but
I don't want
listen,
that. I want someone that will grow here with us.
Yeah. Listen, it's also mindset. I think the sales positions are the easiest to fill because the way we're wired in sales is we're networking, we're outward reaching, right? But when you look at these office positions or even the fixed positions, these guys are not living on social media or even platforms like LinkedIn and expanding their network. They're doing their job. They got their head down. They're hard to find. They don't get in your orbit.
Which brings us up to our next guest, General Manager, CDG Recruiting, Stephen Adragna. Welcome to the show, Stephen.
What's going on, gentlemen?
All right, so you heard David Spisak talk a little bit about hiring and recruiting and give you his strategy. He said technicians are the toughest to hire for. You're an expert in the industry. You've placed a ton of automotive industry experts and professionals across all automotive. As part of your house biz, tell us, what is the toughest job to hire and recruit for, and why?
Absolutely. Right now, the toughest job to hire for is controllers. All across the board, it's our biggest inquiry right now. It's far exceeding technicians. And we're seeing a lot of action on the controller side right now.
And what makes controller so specialty driven and make it such a tough hire long term, but also valuable, I understand, but why is it so tough to find good controllers?
Well, we're seeing a lot of centralized accounting offices being set up right now, and really that person that maybe came from a huge background in accounting is really accelerating right now. Coming from a big firm, coming through processes, procedures. That's what a lot of our clients are looking for, and then growth. So with good accounting, with growth, you need great accounting.
Awesome. That's great. So thinking about another position. So it's interesting. I think for my role, like, you'll put an ad out and you'll get a bunch of respondents. Typically, it's not the people that respond who are employed somewhere else and who are doing well and crushing it. It's the people who are unemployed, who are trying to find another job, who are frustrated with their prior employment. And don't you think in a lot of cases that's hiring someone else's challenges, right? What does it take why is it so hard to find those people who are, and it answers my own question, who are happy and well employed? And what are some tips and strategies for finding those happy, well employed and bringing them into a great organization such as ours or any other great auto group across the United States?
Yeah, no, I think we always have to remember that there's a person behind that resume. So, digging deep into what happened, what their experience is, and where they can be an asset to your organization is really, really a good approach. I think to back to your question, really vetting people, making sure that they are who they say they are is a big thing right now. And I would necessarily wouldn't discount someone that's not employed, because there's always a rhyme or reason, whether it's personal, something happened in their personal life or whatnot. But to seek the best talent right now, it's displaying your company culture. That's what a lot of our candidates, that we talk to every day, is doesn't always come down to compensation. It comes down to growth opportunity. So if you're not presenting growth opportunity, say like, for instance, you're buying more stores. It's something to throw it out there that, hey, we are growing and we need top talent to come within our organization.
Yeah, that's awesome. We see that, like a strong culture. People want to be part of something. It's almost an employee bill of rights now,
Yes.
especially with a younger generation. It is part pay. It is definitely part lifestyle. Ziegler just won best Glassdoor's best workplace environments, the top rated auto dealer a year or so ago.
Awesome.
But
Yeah.
it's also shameless plug for anybody thinking about this conversation. But it's also almost an employee bill of rights to be able to be part of something bigger than yourself.
Right.
Like, I think employees today, they want to be, I do. You want to be able to give back in a unique and interesting way to a bigger cause,
Mhm.
something bigger than yourself. And this workplace and automotive gives that opportunity, Stephen. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think there's tons of great dealer groups we talk to every day that have extreme. They have their values right. They have everything in line, and without us having to sell that aspect to candidates, is people need to talk about it more. Why your group? Because great talent isn't knocking down your door every day, right? You have to
Right.
go out and seek it, and you have to show
Yeah.
people why you are the best to work for in the industry. It's no different than selling a car. Why buy from you? Why come work
Yeah.
for me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that,
So how do
So
you
you,
help dealers connect those dots
yeah.
behind the scenes?
well, a big portion is like, hey, we do this every day. Our team, we have two people in office right now, and then we have a remote team all across the country, and we're having 50 to 60 phone calls a day, from our team, right? If we're seeking out people, we necessarily don't take a lot of inbound, even though we do get a lot of inbound. Is we're doing cold outreach constantly, right? Whether we're hitting our database, we're scheduling calls, and we're scheduling calls for future, because right now it's hiring season.
Mhm.
It's time, it's crunch time. It's like, for a recruiter, this is game time. This is, we're
Yeah.
going to throw on our uniforms. It's like kicking off the first
What,
preseason for the NFL.
what, why is now the recruiting season? Why is now hiring? It seems to
Sam,
me
if
like
I
every
had
time
a
should be.
crystal, it's all the time. But for something, summer's winding down.
Yeah.
The numbers are coming in for the year, and we're going for that final Q3, Q4
Mhm.
push.
All right.
That's when
So
it happens.
as we come into the Super Bowl of hiring and recruiting, I also think there's probably people who are realizing, hey, they're frustrated with the financial performance of their store.
Right.
Yeah.
That they've spent all their resources and they're at a disagreement with whoever or whatever they work in, and they're just like open to something else, right? And
Sure.
maybe that's part of it as we get closer towards the second half of the year. What are some best practice recruiting tips that you could give us based on your expertise? And also, if you would, CDG, you've got a compensation report. Maybe talk a little bit about that. But what are
Yeah.
maybe three best practices?
Well, the best practice is actually, they link to compensation, right? Compensation is not the only thing. You don't want to sell an you want to sell an opportunity, not just the paycheck.
Yeah.
Top performers really want money, but they also want a clear path to growth, right? Dealers
Yeah.
who highlight culture, growth path, and modern perks stand out right now. So that's one. You got to know the market you're recruiting in, right? You got to know where the money's going to land, right? And
Yeah.
that's kind of where we provide that data and that compensation report. It's to recruit talent, right? Here's where the percentiles are, 50 percentile. It means that, you're average, right? So,
Yeah.
and keep in mind, Sam, that this is a production based business, right? So everything we do on the vendor side, everything is based on production, right? And it's also, right now, what we see is, in the hiring processes, they're too dragged out, right? So you got to move with speed, and you have to vet, right? So you have to call those references, you have to check the people out. That's the best thing, that because we can't just go off word of mouth anymore with what people are telling us. Just like a dealer, has to prove themselves to a top tier candidate is why they need to come work for them.
Yeah.
The dealers who are moving quickly are scooping up the best talent right now.
For sure.
So, know your market, move with speed, sell the opportunity, not just the paycheck. You talked about the comp report. Why is it
Yes.
important to understand compensation in the marketplace, and what is the compensation report, and how do you get a hold of it?
Yeah, so our compensation report, we'll share the link. It's all over. You got to go to CD Car Dealership Guy's website, and it'll say view our compensation report. And if you go to cdgrecruiting.com, we have it on there too. You can also DM any of our recruiters, and we'll send you the link. Which this compensation report it's been out there for about a month now, and really where it stands is it's showing the demand, and what you can get for what you're paying right now and where you compare in the market based on our recruiting data.
Okay. So why is it important? I mean, obviously you need to know what different jobs and roles pay. Do you have a
Right.
strategy as it relates to whether you pay market, do you pay under market, do you pay over market? Like, what do I do with that report once I've got it?
Yeah, well, right now, what you got to do is you got to be within the market of 50 percentile. In order to secure top talent right now, you got to be a little over the 50 percentile. So 75 percentile is what we're seeing, and then 90th percentile is people you know, that are in a dealership right now and they're cranking, right? So
Mhm.
elite talent, so to speak, right? All compensation plans are very similar, right? But what we're looking to show you in this report is basically how you can, make sure you're competitive, right? And this is based off of, actually offers made and negotiations we do on behalf of our dealers with candidates.
So I got a question for you. Obviously, you've got a recruiting service. You've placed a lot of people all across the country. One of the things that fascinates me is, the person that says, "Hey, I'm frustrated in my current role. I want another opportunity." They put their name in a hat. It gets out, right? How do you and you and I have never really talked about this before, but do you have any strategies for like maintaining confidentiality as you go through it, right? Because
Yes.
if you are a high performer, like people talk everywhere in automotive, right? As soon as somebody drops on the street or as soon as somebody signals, it's tough to not have it get out. How do
Yeah.
you keep it either as a prospective employer looking to engage with someone or you in a recruiting role? How do you keep it confidential in a world that there's no confidentiality?
Well, we hold our clients and our candidates to confidentiality, right? And we execute an agreement that states that, this is confidential on the candidate and the dealer side, right? And
Yeah.
I'll tell you that people understand it, right? Is like, hey, we want to make sure that this isn't getting out because like 75% of the work we're doing right now is confidential, meaning that the dealer does not want anybody to know they're hiring for this position, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And they're not posting it, it's not out there. So that's why we use general terms when we're posting online about a job we have, is we want to make sure that we're not breaking that and
And
spilling the beans, so to speak.
Steven, it seems to me that's part of your secret sauce is that
Yeah.
confidentiality piece, that huge discretion piece, because as people move around in automotive, you don't want just those that churn, like have a new
Right.
job every 3
Mhm.
to 6 to 12 months. You want to find that person that's willing to make a career and a home. And in an organization like ours here at Ziegler, we find those right people and then we cultivate them, we grow them, we
Right.
develop them, we give them opportunities for growth development like Ziegler University. There are other groups that have very similar. And our philosophy is probably similar to yours. Once you get into a group like that and you find a home like that, it's very low chance that you're going to go anywhere else, right?
Yeah. No, we carry about over a 4-year period, we retain 75% of our placements, right? Because
Wow.
of our
Okay.
vetting
Wow.
process. And we want to know everything. We're not held to the same standards as Ziegler would be as far as HR goes, right? So we can ask questions that generally a hiring person can't, right? So we
Yeah.
want to know about the candidate's family. We want to know everything, right, before we make that placement, so we can
So,
one know what we're getting into when we place
so,
somebody.
la- so last question, and thanks for your perspectives and insights today. Controller's the toughest. What's toughest number 2 and number 3 position?
Ooh. So I would say from our perspective right now is the fixed is finding fixed people that can really drive the numbers. And hey, a fixed operations manager or whatnot, their job is to recruit and retain technicians.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you look at that, when we get a call for technicians, which we generally don't, we don't do a lot of, but hey, we have to look at top down is why are technicians leaving and why aren't you able to recruit technicians?
Yeah. Well, and by the way, that fixed ops director, there is no better role to create that
Mhm.
culture that brings people in. And so vis-a-vis that, it's
Yeah.
hiring for every single position across the group. So Stephen Adragna, general manager at CDG Recruiting. Thanks for being on the show, sharing your perspectives. Controllers, fixed ops directors, fixed ops. David Spisak, and you agree on that. Controllers, that's a fascinating one. So thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Stephen.
That's fun. So
Yeah.
GM, he didn't call out general manager on any of them. Like Steve Spisak didn't say that. He didn't say it. So maybe I'm wrong.
No,
I
but
always
again,
thought
I
GMs
think
were
general
tough.
manager, it's like people are looking for that spot. They're looking to jump. I think
Yeah.
controllers have their head in the books. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not out perusing. So to your point, there's a lot of top talent out there that is doing their job maybe well or exceptionally,
Yeah.
but maybe they're feeling a little underappreciated or maybe they're
Yeah.
not compensated enough. And then
Yeah.
Steven calls at the right time and connects those beautiful dots.
So before we go to the breakdown with Anna, I just want to go to a couple comments that we're seeing online. But then next we'll go to Anna. So Maddie Max Daddy says, good watch. Scott Simmons says, David Spisak is an automotive legend. We saw that today. By the way, he's got a great voice. So I'm
Great
jealous of
voice.
that. And he's got a great
Great
mic
voice.
as well. Lauren Klein, are you seeing less demand for AI enabled roles like service BDC? That's a great question. We'll have to ask that. And then Car Dealership Guy posted a link to the CDG recruiting compensation report, which is cdgrecruiting.com/comp, and noted that it is free from there. But with that, let's transition over to our very own Anna Del Villar. Anna, welcome to the show.
Hi, guys. So good to be
Yeah.
back.
So
How are you
joining
doing?
today, doing well, is our roving head of editorial content, Anna Del Villar, to discuss an OEM. I'm going to set you up here, Anna, that went from virtual bust to one of the coolest OEM turnaround stories in all of automotive today. I'm super intrigued by this. What you got for us, Anna?
Yeah, for years, Buick hasn't really been able to kind of catch a break. As many of us know, during the 2008, 2009 great financial crisis, Buick's parent company, General Motors, almost shuttered the brand completely. But it held on, nestled kind of awkwardly in between Chevy's mainstream appeal and Cadillac's luxury positioning. However, by 2022, Buick's US market share had cratered to 0.8%, and leadership knew something had to change. So they told every Buick dealer either invest hundreds of thousands in EV infrastructure or take a buyout. And roughly half the dealer network walked. But the dealers who stayed were quick to buy up inventory from the stores that had exited, and they got a lot more kind of territory, is what I've heard from quite a few dealers. Sarah Automotive, was telling me, one of their leaders, Tyler, was telling me that the closest Buick store used to be 20 minutes away, and now it's about an hour. But buyouts were only phase one. Between 2023 and 2024, Buick redesigned all of its four models in just 14 months. And the vehicles got sleeker, more tech was added, and they were using higher quality materials. And as a result, Buick saw the largest first half sales increase of any mainstream brand this year. They're up 29%. And sure, Buick's overall sales are much lower compared to, say, Honda, for example. So the growth is more noticeable by comparison. But the brand has made big strides in product market fit. However, Buick has some hurdles to face. 3 of its 4 models are built overseas, and with tariffs rising, the brand's pricing edge could disappear fast. Right now, dealers are telling me that Buick is eating those costs to stay competitive, but that's not likely a long-term solution. GM could shift more production to its plant in Lansing, Michigan, but that takes time. They could drop models, but the lineup's already pretty thin, and they could raise prices, which could put off maybe some conquest buyers. So no easy options here. And not everyone is convinced that this is a true kind of resurgence. I was reading the comments and the feedback from, that we got on the story. And yes, we read every single comment. But many people think that Buick is still destined to go the way of Oldsmobile. But, and that's a real possibility. But I'm looking at it more from a glass half full perspective. And I think the next 18 months will determine if this turnaround is more of a permanent fixture or if it's just kind of a false start. But so far, really, really encouraging stuff from Buick.
It's a very cool and interesting story. As you were going through that, Anna, one of the kind of tests, I guess, would be at a rental car, because I rent cars all the time, is there a rental car under that brand that you really want to drive? And either the best brands in my mind either aren't on the rental car lane at all because they don't engage in that to sell cars, or they've got a car that's pretty cool that you enjoy driving. And here's what's interesting. Buicks are a heck of a lot of fun to drive, and their integration with all the different is it the heads-up display and like the navigation system, the glass
Yeah, the
cockpit,
tech
as
is
it will.
cool.
It's
Mhm.
very cool. It's forward thinking.
Yeah.
It's well above and beyond what you see in a lot of other, maybe like Chevys and some of the other GM products. Um,
Yeah.
I
And then
agree.
you have the Invista for $26,000. So it's one of the most affordably
yeah,
priced new
Yeah.
cars, and that is definitely giving them a boost.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Well, Anna, thanks for sharing your research with us. It's fun to have you as always. We'll be excited to hear what you come back with later on this week or next week in your
Sounds
latest
great, guys.
research. Anna Del Villar, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Very cool. And a note as we wrap up today from Nate, the truck driver. And Nate, I did see your DM on social media. He says,
That's
I'm
awesome.
here again today, Sam. I'm being a sponge as usual, and I've sent you a DM on LinkedIn. I'm ready to park it. So he's a
I
parts
love that.
driver. I think he delivers parts trucks or Toyota parts, and he
Yeah.
wants to get into automotive. And I'll tell you, Yuli, that's the great thing about this auto industry that we're in
Mhm.
is once you find a group where you're comfortable, you feel like you're part of the culture, vision, values, you can grow. There is no ceiling for growth in great
Sky's the
groups,
limit.
great automotive groups. That's right. And it's pretty cool that Nate is continuing to listen. I'll get back on the DMs and respond back to you. Or Nate, reach out to CDG Recruiting too. They'll bring you in somewhere. Cole said, I saw a murdered out in Vista on the highway and was blown away by how cool it was. I don't know what murdered out means. This is not,
Like
I need to
blacked
put that in
out,
chat
all
GPT.
black
Okay.
emblems,
Okay.
black windows, stuff like that. I gotta say,
Okay.
completely unrelated, but when I think of something that couldn't be turned around, to me, totally subjectively, Volvo was an exceptional vehicle. I mean, forever. But I remember in
I,
the
I
in the
don't know Volvo.
90s, in the
Yeah.
90s, the bricks, you were like, okay, so they run 500,000 miles, but they're the worst looking cars ever. And then they turned around aesthetically. They started making really beautiful cars. Buick to me is that it went from nothing to wow. I'm
Yeah.
starting to see a lot of these cars on the road. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Pretty cool.
But that's not always evidence of a successful brand long term. I think of
No,
Oldsmobile,
that's true.
right? Before they weren't, there were
Yeah.
a ton of Oldsmobile, like the Alero. I remember
Yes.
a year old Alero you could sell for $99.95 as a lease
Yeah.
buyback or a buyback from the rental cars. And they were enormously successful, but just
Yeah.
didn't quite make it long term. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Listen, my
interesting.
mom had a Buick Park Avenue back in the day. And I remember it was the first car to have dual zone climate control. And in the passenger side, it had two little buttons. You could go a couple degrees hotter, a couple degrees colder. So
Yeah.
it's
And
interesting.
then final comment up today, Lauren Klein says train and retrain. And I love that as a comment to David Spesak's piece is I don't care what tech you have. I don't care what AI you have.
Hmm.
If you don't have well-trained people that understand their purpose, their role, their job, and they're leaning into executing on it, the whole thing's a disaster. I don't care what AI
Yep.
you implement. It's a problem. So
You
yeah,
can buy the
what
best
show today?
calculator, but if you don't know how to use it, it is worthless.
A calculator, what? I remember the
No, I
calculator
said
watch.
you can
But
buy
we're
the best
no, I
calculator,
know.
but if
Yeah,
you don't
yeah,
know how to use it.
yeah, yeah. All right. Well, hey, everybody. Thank you for watching today. The Daily Deal Live, where we break down the biggest moves in the car business as they happen. Don't forget, we're here live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So we'll be back Wednesday. So if this is your world, hit like, subscribe, Turn on notifications so you never ever miss a beat. And we'll see you next episode. Thanks, everybody. See you Wednesday.
See you guys.